something, tweet it right now, and I will retweet. Otherwise, I'm going to have my nose in the minutes.
Oh, okay. Well, streaming's on, recording's on. Let me tweet. Something must have gone out already, but I'll try again. Okay, let me write it up. Oh yeah, something did go out. If you can see it, I don't know. Oh crap! I forgot to. Yeah.
All right, I see it.
It's the wrong one. Hold on.
Oh, so you're going to delete it and repost?
Yeah, it's an auto tweet one. It has my old name. It's actually now called David Matterall. Let me grab that address. Yeah, all right. Okay, I got it now. 1 second. Okay, so there's a tweet. It still has the wrong frickin' thing. Fuel changes. Oh boy.
Well, it's linking something, so that's on Twitch's end.
Yeah, I see that. Yeah, it's all right. It's out, so that's the one to.
And retweeted. Alrighty. Are you ready?
Almost.
Alright. Started my own recording. Session. Producers and CSM. Attendees: CCP Guard, CCP Falcon, CCP Mr. Happy, CCP Mimic, CCP Burger, CCP Dren, CCP Manbjorn, CCP Explorer, CCP Shreddy, CCP Vertex. This is the last official session with the developers, specifically the producers. CCP Guard asks what CCP Explorer does. Editor's note: for the others, Guard knows everything. Explorer is the senior technical producer and health director of EVE Online. He is responsible for the interaction between developers and operations. He ensures Tranquility is alive. He controls the nodes. He confirms the supernode requests are automatic. Manbjorn does a quick overview of the people in the room and what specific aspects of the game they work with, so the Council of Stellar Management can better direct their questions at the right people. It was decided to have this session at the end of the summit rather than at the start, so everyone is on the same page. This would then allow the Council of Stellar Management to tie up any loose ends and ask any last questions they may have. CCP Guard brings up the roadmap again, as requested by Yuki. Aerith asks what the Resource War team is going to work on now, to which CCP Dren replies that they are focusing on the first 15 minutes of gameplay. Noobman brings up the level of focus on balancing and the worries that it doesn't get enough dedicated developer time. Judge brings up the overview, which is relevant feedback for Team Genesis. A new default overview pack for new players would be very nice. The judge suggests this is a low hanging fruit which could be quickly, quote, thrown together, unquote, by a developer in house. Even getting some color in the overview would add flavor. Yuki asks about community fittings and whether they were scrapped. Mimic says this has been slowed down significantly due to the smaller community team. The Interstellar Services Department are still collecting fittings. Everything code wise is in place. The team just does not want to release it until the Interstellar Services Department can own it. Judge asks what the ISD needs. What remains to be sorted is mostly some organizational details and setting a level that's sustainable for everyone before the project gets launched. CCP Vertex adds that the ISD team has been going through some changes for the last year and seeing whether this is sustainable for the future, which is why the process has also been slowed down. Reload asks how big the Interstellar Services Department team is and is informed there are around 100 volunteers currently. Sort asks about the Entosis module changes discussed in the Sovereignty session and whether that is what is behind the SOV combat shakeup represented on the roadmap. Mimic confirms that is the case. Mimic points out that the roadmap is not final and can change based on future planning with the strategy team. Mr. Happy expects that there will be continuous work and iteration on the agency. Sort feels that a lot of discussion over the summit could be tied to the agency. Mr. Happy admits that the size of the changes in each iteration are not known at this time. The potential seen in the agency is, however, massive and affects many other teams, such as the events team. Noobman mentions that the Council of Stellar Management feels that there is merit in carving out time for some quality of life tweaks on the side of other projects and tasks as discussed in the meeting with the strategy team. Myanborn does note that a reactivation campaign to bring back older players is always likelier to be more successful than getting in new players. After the discussion yesterday, Sort does not feel confident in a solution on fatigue being in sight. He asks how confident Crowd Control Productions are about it. Mimic shares his sentiment about this, as it's been a conversation internally for a long time. She hopes enough space can be found to tackle this, explore options, and find a way to deal with it. Both the Council of Stellar Management and the team agree that going back to the old system is not an option, and neither is adjusting a dial. Myanborn points out that singularity cannot be used to measure behavioral changes. Innominate says that a balance change is scary if it is then stuck in the game for 5 years. If the team is reactive, then it is not as scary. Sort points out that if an adjustment is made but an unrelated issue comes up diverting attention would be a concern. Aerith asks who would work on war declarations if they were worked on. It would be 5-0. Sort asks the nullification thing. Mimic wishes something could be done about it tomorrow, but it will be investigated. Mimic is not allowed to balance ships. CCP Burger finds the thought of producers balancing ships hilarious. Sort asks about the supernode request. It is being changed to the limit being an hour before the downtime before the fight. Sort is happy to see he has achieved something this summit. Aerith asks about the application program interface and mobile and when this would be available. This would be up to strategy despite the ability already being there. Innominate asks about on-the-fly revamping of nodes and the Deadlock Citadel bug. Explorer wants more details on this and clarifies in what cases game masters can step in and remap systems. Sort and Yuki request ACL read access in the application program interface. This would need to be forwarded to Team TechCo, which Steve started doing in the meeting. Sort brings up the last bingo word for this summit. The cloaky camping, he mentions the various different solutions which have been proposed. Falcon points out that this is a game mechanic that is visible, no pun intended, everywhere in space, and is essentially a fundamental part of the game, with no one ever being truly safe. Discussions were had in this session about time-limited experimentations on dial twisting and whether shaking things up is sometimes preferential than waiting longer for the perfect solution. The overall consensus was that this is probably worth looking into closer, but particulars of the discussion have been redacted. End of session. Session. Events 2. Future stuff. Attendees: CCP Guard, CCP Falcon, CCP Shreddy, CCP Dragon, CCP Dren. The team wants to consider the possibility of reusing loyalty point stores. Setting up a new loyalty point store is time consuming. This would allow the potential. Sorry, hold on. I have to take it from the top. I forgot that I had Steam open in the background and it made a noise to let me know a friend had come online. And unfortunately, that's going to appear in my side of the recording. Session. Events 2. Future stuff. Attendees: CCP Guard, CCP Falcon, CCP Shreddy, CCP Dragon, CCP Dren. The team wants to consider the possibility of reusing loyalty point stores. Setting up a new loyalty point store is time consuming. This would allow the potential for more reward options. Right now, any more than 6 rewards in the event system is crowded. The loyalty point store provides a lot of options for ISK syncs or more flexibility in what items would be needed for the reward. The current system gives out points for completing seasonal missions. The loyalty point store gives the team a lot more flexibility for when the rewards are given out. Sort asks about the loyalty points being removed after the event. Dragon says there would be a grace period, but they would be reset between events. Steve, along with many in the Council of Stellar Management, agreed that they would prefer to see items being given as blueprints rather than items to promote manufacturing and market trading, rather than just injecting the item into the economy. David asks about whether the coins should be banked or swiped between the events. The Council of Stellar Management have mixed feelings about them being wiped. They feel that the loyalty points being banked between events would allow for speculation, and even some higher level prizes which take maybe 3 events to gain the loyalty points for. Judge says that he is a fan of the store wiping, saying it's clean. Sort adds that seeing somehow in-game what people missed in the last event store would be a nice way to build up hype for either the current event or future events. The store also allows the team to see better metrics for the popular items and use this to improve the experience in future events. Sort asks about difficulty scaling between the system securities. The plan would be to have the more difficult sites in low null security. Structures do not have a loyalty point store, so cashing out anywhere besides high security and low security would be difficult. This is something the team wants to look at. Dragon goes on to say that a requirement to cash in a station or structure should be a requirement. Redeeming in space is less than ideal. The redeeming system was thrown around. Dragon says the agency loyalty point store should function as much like the current stores in that regard. The Council of Stellar Management vote, not a binding vote, on wiping or keeping. Steve, partial wipe. Everyone else, bankable. Sutonia and Jintan did not vote. Steve mentions mixing the agency loyalty point store into existing stores, similar to the analysis credits in Sisters of Eve stores. Dragon says that this was looked at in some capacity, but a way to implement it wasn't really found. Dragon casually mentions an agency ship class, which has been discussed with Art. Judge loves Dragon now. Some Capsuleer Day discussions were had in a more casual fashion. Steve and Newman mention another source for Gnosis and Genelution C1 through 4 implants. Citadel skins are brought up, and there are some technical limitations. Dragon really wants to see this be a thing, it's just a matter of figuring out some in game elements associated with it, as well as finding the right team. A quick and dirty workaround would be old school skins by using blueprints. Aerith and Sort say this would never work. People are not going to take down their keep stars to apply them. Alliance skins and apparel were discussed, referring to the pizza guys and their uniform and how popular this would be. Anything that allows players to associate with their alliance. End of session. Session. FanFest. Attendees: CCP Guard, CCP Falcon, CCP Curtis. Curtis starts by saying that the sale of tickets is better this year than last time and most times in the past. Eve Vegas hold more tickets than FanFest for the first time last year. FanFest this year is looking to take the lead again. Innominate asks if Crowd Control Productions has a number on people who went to Vegas without buying a ticket. Curtis wants more exclusivity with Vegas party-only tickets only being available as plus ones and not as standalone purchases. There is also a cap on the party-only tickets. Sort asks if this is being marketed as the last big FanFest. That is not the case, as 2020 will see FanFest back in RVK. There is more hype due to FanFest going on the road next year. Guard clarifies that this is more to shake things up and doing something different. This is a strategic decision and not a budget thing. Judge mentions FanFest security and that the security guards weren't necessarily jerks, but they had a gloomy mood. He admits this is corny, but it brings down the feel. Curtis is going to talk to them about that. Curtis mentions freeloading on events, especially the pub crawl. It happens, but we need to make sure events are viable to host. The pub crawl is being changed this year, mostly to do things a little differently and to do something a bit nicer. Now there will be buses which take people to different areas to visit establishments that guests would probably not stumble upon. There will be a bit more on offer than before. Sort suggests a hold hands buddy program for this so no one is lost. Curtis asks if changes will be well received. Judge says this will cut down on freeloaders. Guard asks that if people want to go downtown to have drinks, they can still do that. Curtis is not concerned about freeloaders showing up at the final party where pub crawl will converge. It's good to get everyone together at the end of the night. Judge asks about the pricing, which Curtis explains will be similar. The Sisters of Eve tour will now have two options, one being more activity-based, the other being The Sisters of Eve tour will now have two options, one being more activity-based, the other being more relaxed with spas and such, to suit different tastes. Curtis will make sure that there is a disclaimer if there is enforced nudity in the Sisters of Eve tour. Editor's note, this is in referral to Icelandic public bathing customs and mandatory pre-showers for all, not some satanic rituals. Sort mentions that the Golden Circle tour taken with Sisters of Eve is shorter than the Reykjavik excursion tour. Back on topic, Curtis says that the charity dinner is changing. One of the reasons is that for the last few years, charity has been collected into a fund, with this year focusing on making a final push. The dinner will be a little bit more expensive. There will be included drinks, memorabilia, and raffles. Sort asks if there are any changes in the Council of Stellar Management tickets. Guard says, like always, they include everything besides the charity dinner. Curtis talks about the 15-year landmark. There will be exclusive items, lanyards, bags, and swag relating to it. Judge asks for a spare badge sleeve. Curtis has assured the Council of Stellar Management that the plastic this year will be better and more durable. Sort asks about the Eve store and if there are any special things this year. Guard says some new merchandise will be in the store. CCP Goodfella has more information. Guard mentions a mouse mat design contest being planned. Curtis runs out of the room to get something funny. Guard has a grin, which is spooky. Sort asks about player introduced swag, which Falcon is going to consider. Yuki asks about any super special things because it's 15 years. Guard wants to have streamers streaming from FanFest throughout the event. Sort asks about a room for the other products. Curtis and Guard say that there will be more focus on EVE tournaments and a bigger room for that and a structured tournament. The main goal is not to show what Crowd Control Productions has done, but what the community has done. Steve asks about moving some roundtables being shifted into larger rooms. The downside, however, is that this goes from a roundtable to a panel. Sort asks about the cosplay competition. It will probably be like last year, in the sense that if Crowd Control Productions sees anyone in a costume, they get a prize. Any bigger competitions need more bandwidth, which is lacking. Noobman mentions that the bar by the pleasure pit ran out of booze. Stocking needs to be considered. Curtis says he wants more activity outside the main room during the party, such as beer pong. Judge wants more chairs and blow up couches. Noobman asks about the hamster ball for guard. Curtis is planning on running the main party longer. Someone mentioned a swag gun. Curtis asks about the catering in Vegas. Judge says there are certain things which are never taken. Sort mentions a lot of complaints about the hotel, such as the lack of water, bad rooms, elevator issues. Discord server was amazing, and Curtis says it will be used at FanFest. Some Vegas hotel suggestions were discussed for next time. End of session. Is FanFest not going to be in Reykjavik next year?
There's
Does anyone?
an
Because this is the
announcement
first
that
I'm hearing of it.
yeah, there's an announcement at Vegas by Hilmar that FanFest would actually go on tour. So it would
I
hit
see.
U.S. on both coasts, the West Coast, the East Coast. I think there's one in Europe.
But they
Don't
haven't
know if there's one
announced.
after that.
But they haven't announced the particular cities yet.
I'm a little unclear on the cities. I think they settled on Vegas again as the West Coast. The East Coast is either, I think it's somewhere in the, they're thinking of Florida, they're thinking of Boston, but they have not decided that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm unclear on the details.
All right, moving on.
No, I think we're getting close.
Yes, I think this is the last one. Second to last. Session. Sit down with CCP Ghost. Attendees: CCP Guard, CCP Falcon, CCP Ghost, CCP Mambjorn. CCP Ghost has been working on analyzing the usage of different features in EVE. He requested a sit down with the Council of Stellar Management for player insight into the numbers. The current mining climate has made capital production easier. The bar of entrance into this market is lower, with miners producing the ships rather than having a dedicated player within the alliance taking materials and taking care of it. The change has also caused a local mineral market rather than needing to import and export from high security mined minerals. Mexilon is still being moved in from high security due to this particular mineral being deficient in null security. Sort and Innominate feel that not much should be done to mining itself fundamentally, perhaps to implement some immersive mechanics. Sort also mentions the Comet Trail mining concept, which was pitched at FanFest many years ago, as well as gas mining being added to the wormholes, which had a risk factor and extreme value at the time. It was new and exciting during release. CCP Ghost moves on to the agent missions. the third biggest main activity in the game. Innominate points out that the missions are boring, repetitive, and haven't been changed in years. Judge says in a perfect world, there would be a modular system for mission generation, adding new missions to the existing pool frequently. The point was brought up that a lot of people play the missions as they are, and some might not like them changed too much. Planetary interaction is discussed. Crowd control production metrics show that way more people are using it than some might think. Sort points out this is a forced system due to citadels. Others point out it's a good system of passive income. Putting planetary interaction into a mobile application would be cool. Different seating arrangements than office chairs were mentioned. The setup time and flow for planetary interaction was criticized. Sort mentions the sovereignty anomalies, which are not being used as they simply are not ISK effective based on their skewed difficulty. Ghost takes a step back looking at the 5 big careers in the game which should be looked at for the health of the game. There is a unanimous decision that planetary interaction needs to be focused on. After that, it's a toss-up between missions and solve anomalies. Sort refers to the static anomalies which were fought over once. They were, however, hugely abused as they were. Ghost goes on to show the daily activity for the most common careers and how they segregate. Mission runners were discussed, and the ability to master the missions is an enticing thing, which is why the players keep coming back, despite many of these players not interacting much with other aspects of the game. Sort mentions the Agency 2.0 integration for agents being a potential to take players into other career paths from mission running. Ghost has a last question regarding mining and the ledger and whether there was any sense of progression from it or just fewer Excel sheets needed. The Council of Stellar Management expected leaderboards. Innominate mentions that the progression path for ships has huge gaps between them, in addition to having some side grades such as the Porpoise and Orca. The progression line does not feel in line with the rest of the ship progression systems. Aerith and Sort note that the anomaly timer nerf belts would result in the miners simply logging off when the belts are gone. They question mechanics that essentially forced people to log off. The anomaly nerf being looked into would allow players to be logged in for longer and create more activity. End of session. Session Summit Close. Attendees CCP Guard, CCP Falcon. Sort expresses worries that the strategy team will pick the wrong route and make the whole summit worthless. However, he feels the developer talks were good. Guard urges patience and good faith. Sort clarifies it's just a gut feeling he has. The want is there, but the allotted time to address problems at hand feels lacking. Judge feels that scrapping Resource Wars due to it failing to address the early gameplay, only to work on another feature, which hopes to address the same issue, is counterintuitive. Guard also clarifies that there cannot be expectations of plans changing immediately. Sort feels that their CCP Hellbunny and the Council of Stellar Management have different ideas on how to bring players back. Yukiko feels that there is only one team in development which addresses features which interests them and could address the concerns brought up. Sort adds to this that the producer's session resulted in them only having questions for one of the teams. Innominate is tired of the new player experience stuff. Working on it is cool and all, but short session gameplay is always being worked on with the same results. Sort feels that focusing on bringing the veterans back would be a better thing to focus on to get the vibrant nature back. Judge feels that the portion of new players that doesn't stick is just because of the niche nature of the game. Newman feels there are more and more content creators leaving, with fewer of them emerging. Yukiko says that Crowd Control Productions does need to compare to other games, but the first 15 minutes of EVE is such a small window to show what the game can do. Sort also notes that Crowd Control Productions are focusing more on the new player, which might go to Omega, instead of the veteran, which would come back with 3 accounts. Sort talks about the big alliances being content creators with big fights, which brings in new players, and then this being used against them in arguments. Noobman points out that the remaining players are more the smug survivors who still play the game despite the brutal state and stagnant nature. Sort talks about fatigue and entosis dragging on sessions from what would be a 2-hour operation into 5 hours. The short session goal doesn't fit in well when extended session issues exist elsewhere. Innominate has a feeling that very few of the developers are working on what they want to be working on, and that he and Sort feel that the producers are unable to get the time to work on the pain points brought up in the summit. Sort comments that some devs looked defeated to him. Falcon says that during the summit, the Council of Stellar Management has echoed quite a few concerns that he shares, which have been relayed to the strategy team. Falcon and Guard both agree that if they didn't see a solid and bright future for Eve, they wouldn't be here. Aerith suggests a virtual summit more frequently. Others say this would not work due to time zone differences. Sort suggests having the first summit post-election much sooner. Guard wants to have the summit dates given with the election announcement. He also wants to keep an open mind about future changes to summit arrangements, nothing being set in stone. Aerith suggests the elections in the summer during the dead period. Guard admits the only thing he can think of that would be lost with moving the election period is the announcement of election winners at FanFest. Instead, there could be an announcement of approved candidates at FanFest kicking off the campaign period. Sort asks if moving the next term to be from FanFest to summer. Guard is going to look into it with Falcon, and he says he does not immediately hate the idea. The Council of Stellar Management seems to be unanimous with extending this term until summer to start the proposed shift. Innominate says that having things kick off at FanFest would increase voting participation. Voting booths at FanFest is suggested. At this point, CCP Guard has a facial expression which says more than 1,000 words. End of session. End of summit. Thanks for reading. Go fly spaceships. All right.
Awesome.
Done.
You did it. Read all the minutes, broke out the acronyms. It's a job well done.
Yeah, some of the acronyms I actually don't know.
ACLs?
Or maybe it was ADL.
Yeah, one of those two. Man, that's an accomplishment. Editing it's going to be a bear.
Reduce cutting out silent breaks.
That I can do automatically.
Silencing. Yeah.
It's the stuff where you read a sentence, stop, and then you go back and you read it again.
Yeah, that too.
That's the kind
So
of
I gotta
stuff.
cut that out as well. But Audacity can do that pretty easily. I can do that pretty easily with Audacity. That shouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I think you just have to listen to it all as a thing. So that might be about a 3 hour, because you have to stop, cut. And trust me, that'll double your time. Yeah. So it's about 3 or 4 hours of work.
Additionally, I just finished today. I just refilmed the first episode of How to Survive EVE Online, updated for the current version of the new player experience. So that's about an hour and a half of footage that I need to figure out how to trim down as much as possible. At least I think it was. Let me double check. I have the file. I haven't actually looked at the file since my computer baked it into a QuickTime movie. Let me see how long this thing is. 1 hour, 14 minutes. So yeah, cut out mistakes, cut out some of the middles of warps, cut out 3 jump journeys. And I was trying to speed run through the new player experience.
Well, you did. Hour 15?
Well, that's what the, yeah, that's what well, that's the raw recording. Some of it needs to be cut out. Certain types of mistakes need to be cut out, or some kinds of, stumbling blocks need to be cut out from the video, such as I expected to be able to find Tech 1 afterburners in Sistavere. There were some yesterday, there were none today, so I had to go jump over to Elentine, get a afterburner from there, come back, then continue what I was doing.
Hmm.
With the current version of the new player experience, CCP gives new players a civilian afterburn, which is very meh. It doesn't even double your speed. And there's one part of the new player experience later on where you're slow boating through 120 kilometers in a dead space. So if I were going to continue to use a civilian afterburn for that, that's 2 second. Oh, that's half a kilometer per second with only the civilian afterburner. Yeah, that's a 4-minute slow boat. At least it goes a bit faster with an actual afterburn.
Hmm.
But yeah, it's things like that that I need to watch that whole hour and 15 minutes and figure out what to cut.
Or, yeah, if it's video, you can run fast motion so people can see that
That
something
was one
happened.
of the other things, because early on in the episode, I explicitly wrote in. See, the way I do this,
Hmm.
usually with my video recording, I wing it a lot of the time. I do a lot of improvising and just rely on my own familiarity of the subject to make up my script as I go.
Hmm.
The only part where that doesn't work for me personally is at the very beginning. Uh, very frequently in the past, when I've created videos, I would start a recording, stumble on something, stop, ditch it, start over again from scratch. And I do that like 3, 4, 5, 6 times sometimes until I finally got it, nailed it, and I could use that momentum to then properly improvise through the rest of it.
Wow.
So in the so I actually for today's recording for recording what the new player experience looks like to show it off to people who've never played EVE Online, I actually wrote out stuff in a text file. And in part of that script that I wrote for myself to read off of, uh, I said, native English speaker, to save more time, native English speakers may find that I am perfectly understandable at double playback speed. Now, hold on, wait a minute. I can actually get the exact wording here. Here we go. To save more time, native English speakers may find that I'm perfectly understandable, even if the YouTube video player is set to double playback speed. You can find that option in the lower right corner.
I like that. That's actually a good thing to be, too. I bought a book on tape recently, or, digital version of that, and I played it at double speed. And I believe it was recorded at 1.5 speed and then converted for people that bought it. So it would be somebody speaking slower because when you actually play it at half speed and a half or 2, it sounds absolutely perfectly normal. So when you get to 2, it finally sounds a little bit sped up but very audible. It's very funny. Well, anyway, I guess we can end. We had some guys that say thank you for just reading it. They like the plain facts instead of analysis, which I totally agree with. Sometimes, especially with what do you call it, patch notes. Whenever I get to an article with patch notes, I skip whatever they're saying and I go right to the patch notes. I just want to read the patch notes. I don't want I don't want people's interpretations of it. my. We have a Eve Onion in the audience there. That's say in the audience. That sounds bad. He's in the chat with us. Whatever I can do to make it feel like the audience is also participating is the better way to go. I don't like the idea that there is a group presenting and there's another group receiving and it's a one way. That's why I like this medium. I want people to feel like they're like we're all in a room together and it's just like a town hall kind of thing. The streaming thing is really weird.
The lack of CCP games accommodating vision-disabled individuals.
I like your laugh. Well, you know,
I mean, it's perfectly feasible to create computer games for the blind. It's going to be some interesting limitations there. Probably it'd have to be a music-based game or something.
One of those Dance 5000 games? Or, what is it?
Well, there was an indie game that I purchased and played a little while, some number of months ago, something called Circuit. And basically the objective of the game is to you're given a song, basically an electronic techno synth song of some sort. And you're supposed to be able to recreate it with the pieces that they give you.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it's called Circuit.
Well, you know, when we talked about doing a midweek talking in stations with just you and me, I was thinking of it being a lot like this, where we just take something and break it down or strip it down to its basic stuff.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a plan. Well, sounds like an idea, rather. Yeah. It's not actually a plan yet.
Yeah, it's definitely an idea. But we're doing some neat things. We've got some things coming up on the show's front that'll help that. We even have a survey out now. I think I have over 100 respondents, and people, besides saying Matterall sucks, they actually say some serious things. I hope that's not serious.
By the way, I just noticed in the stream title, the particular way that I spell Donahue is with 2 O's. I mean, granted, amongst some Irish people, you will also see the D-O-N-A variant, but I use D-O-N-O. I just happened to notice that because my eyes just glanced at that part of the screen.
Well, it's just like me to misspell things. Well, I am going to...
Yes, that's the correct spelling.
Got it. I'll fix it for the final. Okay, man. I am going to take a break. I have a basketball team to coach.
10 feet, nothing but net.
Yeah. Thanks again for reading this. This is the end of the third session.
Thank you for hosting.
All 77 pages have been read. We'll put them together.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, good work. Good work. All right, we'll see you again.
I don't know when I'll get around to editing my version of the recording and putting it up on SoundCloud, given that I'm also trying to get How to Survive EVE Online going again.
I want to see that.
Updated for... Because I haven't updated it in 3 years, at least.
Wow.
Yeah, the last version of How to Survive EVE Online is before this Drifter stuff with the new player experience. Anyway, I'm going to go offline. Play safe.
Thank you. You too. Bye.